Oh, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Titus lately, and I'm here with the Heath watching the original Star Wars, which was produced by Lucasfilm. We're going to give you a little backstory and some colorful insights into this picture that maybe you didn't know. So, how you doing tonight, Heath?
I'm all right. Doing quite. I'm stoked.
Yes. Yeah, this part right here always gets me pretty excited.
It really takes me back. 1977. I was in diapers.
Yeah, I was not born yet. I wasn't born. But the Hollywood legend has it that George Lucas actually produced this film after a bad acid trip. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just one of the stories going around Hollywood. Is that he was into the uppers and downers, and they got a crew together and they said, hey, let's do something in space. Star Trek had been out for a long time, and Lucas was like, I kind of want to emulate the Star Trek universe, but I want it to be more like an acid trip. So he was like, you know what? Let's do Star Wars. And so they're like, all right, we're going to do that.
I have to wonder how many people he led down the primrose path of LSD as a result.
Oh, quite a few. Harrison Ford was actually the bag man. He was the one that would bring in the drugs. But it is what it is, man. He actually got clean long enough to do the part. He downward spiraled for 2 years. That's why it took that long for them to get Return of the Jedi out. Because he was in back alleys, like snorting anything that even looked like cocaine, But, wow.
Man, that's sad.
It is. Oh, holy
so
cow.
This must have been about the time when George first put the tabs under his tongue.
Yeah. They actually, these plaster models took them a long time to construct. Here's a R232 with C2PO, and
yeah. What now? Wait a second. I see C3PO. Who's the light colored one behind him?
That's his twin brother that they'll actually bring back after the Force Unleashed. They were separated at birth. Their mother had complications. So
Titus, you're a bit of a Star Wars nerd. What material is C3PO and his twin brother made of? You know what the metals are that those guys are made of?
Yeah, C3PO, he's made of a rare alloy that actually Hershey's actually uses it. It uses a thin format of it for their wool wrapping for their candy bars. So in reality, C3PO is a giant Hershey's bar, which is what George Lucas was looking for because he had the munchies. He was so high when doing this. He was like,
right.
Oh, dude, I want a giant chocolate walking robot. And initially, when the film was going to be released, they had marketed a Hershey's C3PO, but it was too expensive to manufacture because the liquid mold was going to cost them $250,000. And George Lucas, they didn't think the movie was going to do well. In fact, Hershey's came out. I'll find the article. They said that this movie will fail. They said this will be the biggest failure of all time. And, boy, were they absolutely wrong. So, I don't know if you guys knew that, but that's a little tidbit.
Yeah, they thought they were going to be taking the Hershey Highway.
Oh yeah, no, they took the wrong way. They went to the dark side on that. So, there's James Earl Jones. If you guys didn't know, he's actually not in this outfit. Believe it or not,
he's not. That's right.
They brought him on set with a megaphone, and he shouts from a distance, and the boom catches him. So. He constantly followed around the Vader character with a megaphone. In fact, the guy that played Vader was the same guy that did Fall Guy from the 1980s Stuntman series, and he loathed James Earl Jones because he felt like his Texas accent would be more favorable for Vader, you know?
Right.
Like he would be like, I find your lack of faith disturbing, sir. You know, like he tried to do it, and they're like, no, we can't go Texas with it because there is no Texas in the Star Wars universe. There's no Texas.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting was I knew they filmed some of these scenes in Mississippi, and just with civil rights issues and everything like that, what I understood was that James Earl Jones actually was not allowed on set for some of the scenes. So like you said, he had to be from a distance, you know, just to kind of keep the peace with those folks that might not have been really seeing eye to eye with what George Lucas was trying to do with diversity, you know.
Well, segregation was still a big issue at the time. In fact, the Star Wars universe and the film is actually kind of a allegory of segregation and slavery. You know, the early plantation slave owner mentality. That's kind of what this movie is actually about. It's about black slavery.
Are you trying to tell me that stormtroopers are crackers?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And I'm telling you that C-3PO is he's one of the people it's one of the slaves, you know. And it's just unfortunate, but that's just how it went. So
I kind of feel like it's George Lucas was seeing into the future, you know. Here we have a strong African American individual, you know, very strong, you know, person who's in charge of an army of crackers. You know, a little bit like what we're seeing in America today with our political climates.
Yeah. It's true. And George Lucas is a huge activist for the African American population. And bravo for that, George, because that's one of the things that he really captured here was black freedom, you know. Here, this is interesting. Princess Leia being taken down the hallway with these 4 crackers. And then she meets Daddy Vader for the first time. Oh, crud. Did you guys know? Did you already? Oh, I'm sorry. I probably spoiled it for someone who's never seen this movie.
You know, it had always been commented on that Leia really had tight buns. You know, and when I was young, I assumed they were talking about her hair. But as I've become an adult, you know, there's been some cross-referencing to other anatomical regions. You know, it took me a little bit to realize that one.
Heath and Ader, this has we're trying to keep this down to a PG rating. You're pushing us up into the PG-13 genre, which actually goes above the Star Wars rating. So,
Titus, I've seen some G movies lately with more crudeness than that. I appreciate the filter.
Okay. This guy looks super serious. He's like, I've got to come across stern, or Vader's going to crush my throat.
I appreciate what they're trying to do with the decorations on their uniforms, but I have to question the validity of the ribbons that they present. I mean, they're just not. They don't seem accurate at all.
Well, again, they put this production together in a short period of time with limited funds and resources. George Lucas really hadn't even planned this out. This whole thing just kind of came together.
I didn't remember the zoom in that we're seeing on the scene. I have to wonder from what elevation they were taking that shot from. Do you think George was actually in one of the hovercrafts or one of the stormtroopers? Not stormtroopers, sorry. I don't remember what those creatures are called now. Or do you think that they were in a helicopter? I mean, that was a high elevation scene, and I just was curious how they shot that.
I think it was a drone shot. George Lucas actually had his own drones when this was being produced. George Lucas had access to a lot of technology that we don't have till now. You know, they actually edited this on Final Cut, the first film. Steve Jobs had already invented the MacBook Pro, he decided to retro back to the Apple IIe for the general populace. But this scene here in the desert, this was actually shot in I believe this was Arizona. No, that can't be Arizona. It was shot somewhere in a desert region, I'm guessing.
I don't think so. I really don't. I think it was a lush tropical region that was green screened and then overlaid with sand. But, I understand why you'd consider it to be in a sandy location.
Yeah, I think this was an allegory again for George. He was a big fan of the Beach Boys. They would actually play the song. I wish they all could be California girls while C-3PO is walking across the sand here. They would throw beach balls around the set, and they actually had the Beach Boys playing the real band they were playing. That's one of the reasons why this movie was so expensive. Is the original soundtrack was actually created by the Beach Boys, but they felt that it was too playful. I'm gonna get a hold of that original soundtrack. I'm gonna provide all these resources at the end of the production here. So
I'm not sure if your server will be able to handle all that action. Hey, I have heard some people say that they really believe that C-3PO was the first homosexual robot that was introduced in the movies. I had my own questions. Once I was old enough to really look at his behavior, the slight lisp, just some of the things that he does, even the way he walks and corresponds with R2-D2, makes me wonder if that agenda might have been being pushed even back here in 1977.
Well, robot sexuality was becoming a big issue during this time frame. There was a lot of confusion in the robot community about sexuality because there is no sexuality. And so kind of in the robot community, anything goes. And so, who knows, go ahead.
So you don't think Hershey was worried about what they might be getting into here?
Heath, I don't think Hershey's ever been worried about what they're getting into. They're a very brazen company, They're willing to kind of do anything. They just changed their chocolate recipe, by the way, which almost made them go under.
That was not worth it.
Yeah.
So Todd, tell me about these little guys in the robes. You know anything about these gentlemen?
Yeah, they had gotten the guys from the set of The Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz reunion. When they were shooting this, George actually came across a wild party of the 53rd annual Wizard of Oz midget convention. And so he was like, man, this is epic. We got to get these guys in the movie. And so they called over to wardrobe and they said, we need to make these guys look kind of different. They need to not really even appear to be human. Luckily, they had some, there was a failed troll doll, life-size troll doll that had just totally failed in the market that prior Christmas. And so the company that made the troll dolls had all these life-size troll outfits that they never actually made the plastic trolls for. And so George was actually able to steal these for about $30,000. And so they put the midget in these, and that is how these came about.
Now, I don't remember this communication style between the moving trash cans here. Is that one robot? Is that a trash can that's walking around? Did you see it?
Yeah, I'm not entirely familiar with that particular robot. I know. Again, there was a lot of sexual confusion. And
this is a little bit of a disturbing scene. Is this an unedited version I'm seeing some
movement that you don't think is appropriate. Yeah, I would agree. You know, it's kind of like a pirate ship, Heath, on these droid slave transports. You know, anything goes. So yeah, you may have seen.
Gotcha.
You may have seen something happening there.
There was some robot gyrating that was disturbing.
That was
the red flag for me on that one, Titus.
It's very ambiguous. You know, it's just kind of like what's really going on. Man, the gas mileage on this thing must have just been killer. I mean, that has to be just the worst gas mileage. Here we have R2D2 waking up.
Here we go with the robot orgy.
Disgusting. It makes me sick. George is such a pervert.
You know, I mean, I'd often heard that Lucas was huge into Halloween and that he was, you know, trying to introduce some druid activity in with the sand people.
Well, as I said before, you ever wonder how he had the connection with the company that made the troll dolls? I mean, come on, this is no coincidence. It's all linked together. Heath and Mater, it's all linked together. So, yeah. George Lucas himself is actually a 33rd degree Freemason, and he's also a druid. So he goes high up in the occultic realm.
I can see that.
Some of the stuff you're seeing on film is actually just sorcery. It's not even special effects. Oh, Luke. Bocce. Oh, yeah, it's got to speak Bocce every time. If it doesn't speak Bocce, what are we going to do?
I often wonder how many people tried out for Luke Skywalker.
Well, that's an interesting conversation because Luke's character, I mean, there was many people that tried out for it. Kirk Douglas. They actually brought him in 76, you know. But they felt that it would that George Lucas he was worried he was going to start shooting a space version of Spartacus. And so Kirk Douglas got up there and did his performance, and it was very commanding, but they really decided, you know, we want Luke to be kind of a sucky actor, and so they went with Mark Hamill.
Well, and I had heard that they felt that Kirk was a little too masculine for the role.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody that was a little bit emo. And
Mark
Hamill just really fit the bill for that, you know.
Yeah, kind of like a Swedish, like a little Dutch boy, you know. He kind of has that feel, like a little Hummel doll, you know. Someone that you would send out to get the milk in the morning, you know. Like a Swedish tea maid, you know, if you will. Uh-oh. Oh, that droid had some bad STDs there from the activity going on aboard the ship. R2D2 passed something along that's a robot version of crabs. Oh, here we go, man. I'm going to have to edit this. It's bad.
What?
Oh, I was just saying the content, you know, we're getting up there PG-13. But anyways, back to Mark Hamill. He had so many offers on the table at this point. And he's like, you know, my career could really take off here if I did Star Wars. His agent said, when you do this movie, Mark, he was like, you will be the biggest star in Hollywood. You will be in every film ever produced after this. So Mark took him up on it and realized that his agent was completely wrong. Because until The Force Unleashed came out, that was the next time that I actually saw him or recognized him on the big screen. Over 30 years later.
Right. He went through. What I understand is he really went through kind of a Brian Wilson type situation from the Beach Boys. Going back to your sand reference, I mean, when you look at the Mark Hamill that shows up in episode 7, I mean, he seems like he's bipolar or manic depressive. Something's going on very sinister with the original Jedi. It's very disturbing. I don't think it's the dark side of the Force. I think he's got some type of psychological trauma.
He was hanging out with Brian Wilson because, as I told you, the Beach Boys did the original soundtrack. They spent a lot of time on the set.
Oh yeah, you said that.
Yeah, Brian Wilson just rubbed all over him. Not that way, you know what I mean, but like
right, not in a PG-13 way. Understood.
Yeah, just he rubbed off on him, And right. George Lucas in episode 5, he had to separate Brian Wilson from Mark Hamill because he realized he's like, dude, this is he's gonna be talking like an Ewok by the time I get this picture started. So they had to send Mark Hamill to a rehab to get him away from Brian Wilson, kind of get him on the straight and narrow. But yeah, he was never the same after that. Like if you saw him in The Force Unleashed, he's literally just weeping. That's all he can do. They couldn't even get him to speak. They tried, and he just came out like, he can't even really talk. So it'll be interesting what they do. I think in the next films, they're going to CGI his face and get a voice actor to do his part because he's not even coherent.
Well, I gotta tell you, Titus, after watching episode 7, I really feel I wish they would have done a little bit of CGI with Leia. I mean, I felt like she was kind of a hurting unit, overall. But I mean, there's some sentimentality and nostalgia behind bringing the original cast members in, regardless of their physical or mental states. So I have to give J.J. Abrams credit for that.
Leia was a major letdown, dude. It looked like her pants were higher, and she was wearing shoulder pads and everything. She just had this kind of hunch.
I really wish they wouldn't have done the plastic surgery on her either. I wish they just would have left her, just a natural aging process versus the Joan Rivers type thing they're trying to pull.
And Han Solo, he was still smitten, that little rebel, and I'm just like, dude, like, she's rough. Like, I think if they really wanted to make a point in episode 7, put her back in the Jabba the Hutt Tiki slave, not Tiki slave, but that Twi'lek slave outfit,
Oh, right, the titanium bikini, right.
Yeah, it would just be, that would be the showstopper.
Well, we're kind of getting off track here. We're kind of jumping ahead. We're jumping ahead 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, well, we're back here. This thing here was shot. This Tatooine scene again was shot in Arizona with this is Mark Hamill playing a scene with his parents here. You hear that? His memory erased. This is some Orson Welles stuff going on here, dude.
It really is.
This family keeps a lot of secrets, don't they?
Yeah.
I've got a feeling they didn't tell Luke much about his lineage. Staying on another season, he wants to be the QB, doesn't he? Oh, they're talking about farming. Moisture generators on Tatooine are big money. As you know, the planet does not have much moisture on it. Water is in high demand.
Now, has there been any discussion on what these folks are eating out here on Tatooine?
Well, what they're drinking in that cup right there, it's actually blue bantha milk. It's a popular treat on Tatooine, which is interesting because not even all the ingredients come from Tatooine. I mean, the bantha milk does, but what makes it blue doesn't come from Tatooine. It comes from Endor. I'm not even going to tell you. It'll make you sick.
The ant's outfit looks like it may have come out of 1970. But, you know, the rest of it looks believable for, you know, daytime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got the hippie feel to it. All the wardrobe in this film kind of has a hippie feel. And again, that's why George was really this thing really could have tanked, because with the Beach Boy music here, it was just a totally different movie. You should see the original cut with the Beach Boy music.
Yeah, and it is surprising because the music is a totally different feel from what you normally get from a Beach Boys album.
Yeah.
It really captured the feeling, though, with the crescendo of the music, looking at the two moons.
Yeah. C-3PO, I never really trusted him. You know, from when I saw this initial movie, I thought he was actually going to be the bad guy. Just something about him just creeped me out, especially that scene right there where he's in the dark by himself and his eyes are glowing, looking at Luke. I'm just like, dude, something's wrong with this robot.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a little disturbing.
But eventually I came to trust him, you know. About the time that he helped R2-D2 get Luke and Han out of the trash compactor, I realized, okay, this guy, he really isn't out to kill Luke at this point, you know. This is like the Tatooine version of Beverly Hills here. They're really living it up.
This scene right here reminds me of Planet of the Apes for some reason. It has that same, you know, surrounding galley feel to it where,
yeah,
you know, in Planet of the Apes, there's humans chained up in the middle, but those caves going around the outer reaches of Tatooine look similar to what you'd see from Planet of the Apes.
There was in that prior shot you just saw there, the T-16 land speeder. I love it. And the Sand People. And we were talking about blue bantha milk. There's a bantha right there. Bantha milk. They never really show you what makes the T-16 levitate. I think George used his magical powers. That's one of his Freemason things, I think. Uh-oh. He's got his own little Tuscan rifle. Look at him. Oh, you can see one all right. What Luke Skywalker doesn't realize is that is the bantha, that's the Sand People welcome. He actually isn't even trying to kill him. That's how they welcome the newcomers. This scene was just totally misunderstood. They're actually welcoming him into their camp. Yeah, that's what they do.
So him hanging out in the expanse of the wilderness just by himself, this is part of the welcoming committee.
Yeah, and it's true. This is kind of like the version of initiating someone into a gang. You know, when you get when they beat you in, they jack your ride. They take your T-16 and strip it down for parts, you know, and put it up on blocks. That's kind of what was going on here. If Obi-Wan had not shown up, Luke would have actually been the leader a Tuscan gang, Tuscan Raiders.
So he basically interrupted the process really to just change the tide of what happens here in the movie.
Yeah, it would have been totally different. The dialogue in the next two films would have been incoherent. It would have just been a bunch of growls, rumbles, and shifting of body masses under large cloaks. It would have been very boring. So I'm glad that Obi-Wan spared him.
When you look at Obi-Wan's cloak, there's a lot of extra material there that really wasn't needed in the original casting. But one of the things that I'd heard about him was that he would get excited in certain scenes, which would cause, and I really don't mean to be crude here, but involuntary erection, and they didn't want it to be obvious, especially during his saber scenes and scenes where he's teaching Luke about the Force, and so they wanted to make sure that his cloak had plenty of material there so that when he ran into those issues, it wouldn't be obvious on camera.
Well, and you'll notice on one of the scenes when he's training Luke to sword fight that the blade actually stops short of Obi-Wan's saber, and that's all the further I'm going to go. Let's just say that Obi-Wan paid for that one. So there was a lot of drugs, man. This was a free time, This is like the end of the hippie era. Oh man, poor C-3PO.
I'm really starting to see that as an adult. As a kid, it just looks like innocent Star Wars.
Yeah,
I'm really seeing the background behind.
There's so many hidden themes in this movie, dude. It's so dark. It's really sad. George Lucas was trying to make a kid's flick, and in reality, it's like one of the darkest movies I've ever seen in my life. When I watch this now, I cry. I'm holding back tears. Oh, here we go with the information and name dropping. Yes, I was in the Clone Wars. I fought with your father. When I first saw that thing come out, dude, I was like, whoa. This scene right here is actually when nerddom started. This is when an era of nerds were born, watching this scene.
Right. There was a lot of nerds looking for really macho father figures at this point.
Yeah. Looking for nerds in all the right places, The Nerds Candy Company actually wanted to get on board with Star Wars too. And their CEO was like, no, it's not going to happen. They're like, we don't believe with the politics of George Lucas.
One of the things I had heard was that Luke was very upset that he was never able to master Obi-Wan's accent.
Yeah, that's one of the few mysteries in the Star Wars galaxy is where the British accent actually comes from, because there's no Britain and there's no UK in Star Wars. I heard the guy that played that role, though, actually hated Star Wars. He kind of had a Spock. What's his name?
Goodness, he hated it, yes.
He had kind of like a Spock moment where he walks down the street and everyone's like, "May the Force be with you." He started cursing him, and he died a miserable existence. Or is he still alive, or did he die?
No, Alec Guinness is dead.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Spock was able to come to grips. Leonard Nimoy came to grips with his role. William Shatner came to grips with his role. You know,
right?
For whatever reason, Harrison Ford escaped the steely grasp of Han Solo. But part of it too was Star Wars was just a film series. Star Trek, because it was on every week, you became typecast instantly. You know.
Right.
Because there was so much content. It's kind of like if you did 30 movies about cowboys, you're going to be typecast as a Western, you know. Mark Hamill never really got typecast because he's one of the worst actors in Star Wars, which kind of blows my mind at how the film was still so effective.
Right. Imagine how powerful it would have been to have a good actor play the master of the good part of the Force, or the light side of the Force.
Oh, I know, dude. Like if they had got Christopher Walken, you know, to play it. I mean, dude, it would have been such a different movie, you know.
You know, one of the things that I think, one of the reasons that the dark side to me always has failed in some of its endeavors, like with the Death Star and things like that, are, I mean, just look at the hairstyles that these guys were rocking. I mean, they're clearly out of touch, with what's going on in the universe. I mean, no one would intentionally be wearing their hair like that.
No, to me, this guy speaking right here, this general, he looks like an Undertaker.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, a lot of people think Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I really have trouble believing in the future that we have an entire culture of comb overs and mullets. I'd like to think that there's something a little more, up to date than that.
Yeah. There's Darth Vader. They call him Lord Vader. Is there some sort of salvation implied here? I don't know, you know. Like, is there a church of Star Wars that I'm not aware of? Yeah.
Actually, from what I understand, in the UK there is an actual religion. I forget what it's called, but where they actually do follow Star Wars to the point of it being a religious experience.
I'm pretty sure they do that here too. If you went out on the opening night of Star Wars, dude, it was scary. It was really, really scary. James Earl Jones wanted to one-up Spock from Star Trek with the Vulcan hand grip. He's like, we got to come up with something a lot better, you know. That's how the choke came about.
Under George Lucas's direction, Luke in these scenes a lot of times is just kind of, I have to believe he told him, what I want you to do is look clueless, ask a lot of questions, and rely a lot on C-3PO for direction.
Obi-Wan apparently is one of the first investigators in the galaxy because he seems to have all the answers. Luke, go Get into T16. Oh, there it is, dude.
He's kind of the Columbo of Tatooine.
They actually burned a whole Tatooine village to produce this scene. George had been on a bender the night before, and he actually didn't even tell the people they were going to do it. He was like, dude, I'm going to burn this mother down, and they did. They did. He's like, my family's gone. And then their place is burnt skeletons. There she is, Princess Leia. With Lord Vader, with Daddy.
I didn't remember this little dark probe with the hypodermic needle extended from it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's Lord Vader C-3PO.
I mean, I guess he's so powerful he can't actually handle a needle himself. It needs to be handled by an underling.
It's beneath him. What they were actually giving her there, though, is quite harmless. It's a flu shot. Because on board the Death Star, there was an outbreak of the flu, and he was just making sure that she did not perish of the flu before they could interrogate her and torture her to death. Yeah.
Just some unwanted kindness or unsuspected kindness coming from Lord Vader.
Yeah. Did you see them throwing Jawas on the fire over there? Dude, Jawas burn good, man, if you need to start a fire. They smell good, too, when you cook them.
They're like, how are we going to cross this chasm?
Yeah, it cracks me up. The T-16 can levitate 3 feet off the ground, but it can't fly. Okay. Interesting.
Now, what? Okay. I'm at a loss here.
Here's some of Lucas's famous remastered scenes. CGI and all of its evil.
Be right back, Titus.
All right. Three or 4 seasons. Man, these guys are easy. I've tried this on the job before, and it does not work out well. Well. This is Obi-Wan going gangster in the Star Wars galaxy, wearing your hood low over your head like that. It's kind of like sagging your pants in our society. It's like, look, bro, I'm a Jedi. I'm ready to rock. Oh, the famous Moss Eisley Cantina. Jim Henson was just elated with the scene. The Varisian ale is flowing, or the Varisian brandy and the Karelian ale. Hey, that was the guy from Legend. Got some guys from Area 51 there. Here we go again with the segregation. You know, we don't serve their kind here.
I really think this is one of the more celebrated, scenes or type of scenes that you find in the Star Wars. You know, anytime you get the bar scenes going, seems to be a fan favorite.
Yeah. Anytime there's dismemberment to be had, it's a good time, you know? Oh, crud, I just spoiled it for someone watching this for the first time. Sorry. It amazes me how many species are in the same room and there's no, like, deadly virus. This guy looks like he has a bottom under his
face. There is, Titus. I mean, look around the room. You don't look like that just from birth. I mean, there's obviously then some viruses that have gone on in the galaxy.
Yeah. Anyone who brags about their crimes. Uh-oh, here we go. They had to do 32 takes of him chopping this guy's arm off. Each time they just thought it wasn't realistic enough. And then when George Lucas actually threw up off camera, they knew they had hit it right. Because that last take, he was like, guys, I can't take it. Yeah. And he just tossed his cookies. He'd actually been eating Hershey's bars. They were hoping the Hershey's promo was going to come through. Somehow, trombones and clarinets made it into the Star Wars galaxy. Amazing. A lot of people don't know it, but Harrison Ford was actually a carpenter on George Lucas's set. He had not even planned on having Harrison Ford be the part of Han Solo. And one day he had Harrison Ford stand in for some readings. And turns out George Lucas thought Harrison was a good fit for the Solo.
I had heard that George had actually asked Harrison Ford out on a date. The carpenter part is true also, but once Harrison turned him down, there was a little bit of blackmail involved to get Harrison on the set, but he actually did a phenomenal job, as you can see.
Oh, absolutely. He does have that charmingness about him. I can see why George was smitten. He was taken away by his charm. One of the things that a lot of people blame George Lucas for is his ability to tone down situations. Like, for instance, Han Solo's character is clearly a bad guy. And one of the things George Lucas tried to do was tone down his lifestyle. He was a drug smuggler. Like, he was like one of the worst of the worst type of criminals, like a real shyster. And in this film, he tried to come back and kind of tone him down. The infamous scene where Greedo shoots first, you know. A lot of people were upset about that because Han Solo's character he would be the guy that shoots somebody just for looking at him wrong, yeah.
Again, I think it also goes back to the diversity conversation. When is it right for any culture or race to shoot another race?
Well, pistol etiquette always comes into play. When you're doing gunplay, there's always some kind of etiquette. 6 paces, turn around, shoot the other person. Han Solo's etiquette was just skin that smoke wagon and shoot him from underneath the table.
Another challenging situation here is they had contemplated having a stare down between Han Solo and this character, but it was by default Han Solo was going to lose because the character can't blink. So they decided to go with the pistol shooting, instead.
Yeah. I mean, look at his optics, dude. His eyes are the size of like small softballs. He was going to win, and Han Solo loses. That is one bad Solo. He calls it a mind probe. He's saying flu shot. He really means flu shot. The Darth Vader staff meetings, I'm telling you, they must have been fierce. Talk about intense. Like, you don't know who's going to get choked out this week. Like, who's going to get the force choke this week in the staff meeting? They probably like took votes or drew straws. Like, who's going to intentionally upset?
They always sent the new guys in to see him.
Yeah,
they're like, we're going to break him in.
They're like, hey, call him Beatty. He loves that, And that's many a body were drug out of those Thursday staff meetings. I'm sure the snacks and the food was just excellent. Lord Vader really prides himself in the best of the best,
Yeah. Now, if you look at the way some of these robots even behave in these scenes, I did understand they were trying to, George Lucas was trying to show some artificial intelligence had gotten to the point where it had become so advanced that the artificial intelligence was beginning to develop mental illness. So that's why you see some of those robots walking around the way they were, just kind of, incoherent, almost like homeless people.
Here's the Jabba thing. A lot of people don't realize it, but one of the reasons why Han Solo was under the thumb of Jabba so bad is, if you've read the Han Solo trilogy, Han Solo actually ends up killing Jabba the Hutt's uncle, and the Hutts were kind of like the mafia of the Star Wars galaxy, and Jabba hated his uncle, and it was actually good for business when Han Solo killed him. But because he was a Hutt and Jabba was a human, he could not let him live.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like Jabba has herpes in the scene.
Reading the books and the screenplay, Jabba the Hutt was supposed to be an unattractive character, but as you can see, he really
quite
isn't.
handsome, quite striking. Yeah,
he's very striking. Even attractive, like you said. It's kind of really doesn't line up with the vision I think that the original screenplay had in mind, but it still came off okay.
There was Boba Fett there too in that scene, the infamous Boba Fett. Look at the trunk on that thing. It's like a like a mini kind of man snuffleupagus.
Yeah, exactly. Trunkalophagus.
The Millennium Falcon. The design of the Millennium Falcon was actually based off of a teacup saucer that George Lucas's auntie had given him as a kid, and he used to play with it and fly it around the house, making all the noises and stuff. He's like, one day I'm going to turn this into a spaceship. Here we are. All that laser fire, man, there's so much radiation being released. Most of those stormtroopers will die of cancer. This is before Star Wars really knew a lot about the cancer epidemic. Now, Heath and Ader, I understand you can do a pretty good Chewbacca. You studied the Chewie roar.
I'm sorry, what was your question, Titus?
I said, I understand that you do a pretty good Chewbacca. You studied the Chewie dialect.
I've been known to get down on some Wookiee on occasion.
You may have to demonstrate that for us at some point.
Absolutely. I will definitely give you some Wookiee.
People may not realize it, but the Wookiees are actually a cousin of the Ewoks. Like racially, not like family, but or species, I should say. The species is a cousin of the Ewoks. And it makes sense. I mean, look how big they are versus the Ewoks, Just like kind of like a Saint Bernard versus a Chihuahua,
The Ewok is actually the evolved Wookiee.
Oh, you think so, huh? Oh, we're going to get into this debate again. The Wookiee is the evolved Ewok. But whatever. Agree to disagree. A lot of people think that the breathing apparatus with Darth Vader was kind of they meant to do that, but James Earl Jones had a bad case of asthma when they were shooting this, and it was so bad he had to constantly pull his breather up to his mouth while he was actually even speaking the scenes. So they're like, dude, we're going to have to put a respirator on Darth Vader. If you watch The Field of Dreams, there's a few scenes in there where you can still see the asthmatic, deep breathing of James Earl Jones. There's remnants of Darth Vader. Like, he even almost force chokes Kevin Costner in that film. Yeah. Poor Leia, she's been through it. On Dantooine. Has anything good come from Dantooine? Yeah.
I had heard that in this scene, George Lucas actually asked for them to film external scenes of Earth from space. So, they were able to get on one of the spacecraft, that had been orbiting the Earth, and asked them to shoot backwards with a zoom lens to actually get shots of Earth, as the planet that Leia is trying to avoid the Death Star shooting.
Well, the only reason that they weren't able to use that footage is they weren't able to simulate the destruction of the Earth and make it look real with the same shots. And so they're like, we're going to have to fake this, We're going to have to fake these shots at the interview. So that's what they did. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean, it looks pretty real, but if they could have just done it for real, it would have really enhanced what they were trying to accomplish, I think.
Yeah.
lot of people don't know this, but the chess pieces from the Millennium Falcon were laid the foundation for the Blizzard Warcraft series.
Really, I didn't know that either. Let the Wookiee win. Diversity, clearly, you know. Let the black people win. You know, that's kind of what they're saying here. It was George Lucas was a freedom fighter, you know. Let all races come together. Beautiful.
You know, Chewie always has that bandolier on. While it's aesthetically pleasing, I often wondered what the practical applications of the bandolier were, being that they're shooting laser weapons. And it was never able to really figure that one out.
That's a good question. I'll have to research what is actually in his bandolier because I don't know, man. That's a good point.
And you would think if they were snacks that they would be eaten up along the way, or if they were batteries, they'd need recharging. It would be something interesting to look into.
I think Wookiee snacks is a good possibility. You notice there that Han Solo's character is an unbeliever in the Force, you know? It's kind of Jordan's approach to religion and God and kind of covering all the bases, you know? Like,
right.
I believe in Jesus. Han Solo doesn't, you know? There's
right,
actually,
and here Luke is demonstrating walking by faith and not by sight.
Right. There's actually there's a Bible study there's a Christian Bible study called Through the Bible with Star Wars that I recommend people to check out, those that have any questions about how Star Wars relates to Christianity or your faith. It's quite powerful.
I'll have to check into that.
Oh, definitely do. Bring it to your latest cell group, Heath. You know, bring it to your cell group.
So is Obi-Wan sort of like a priest figure?
Yeah, see, the Jedi Order is kind of like the reverend. They're kind of like the pastors of the Star Wars universe. Why do you think Darth Vader hates him so much? Because he's kind of like the devil, you know? They want to give people flu shots.
Did he just bark an order at Darth Vader?
I think maybe.
Now, Titus, you've read the books. Is it ever explained how the humans in the movie are able to talk to the robots like R2-D2 and talk to Chewie and understand what they're saying? I mean, is there any explanation there as to how they're communicating?
Well, there is translator software that they use to understand what they're saying. They skip over showing they don't want the translator to have to be the middleman between the robot and the people in the film, the droids and the people, so they don't show that part. But typically you'd have a translation device. That's no man. I always wondered why they call it the Death Star. Why not the Life Star? You know, it's so big. It seems to have so much activity on it. You know. Oh, I know why. It's because it can destroy planets. That's why it's called the Death Star. My bus. That's right, On. You don't give up. You hang in there. Obi-Wan Kenobi is kind of like the James Bond of Star Wars. He has the British accent, the cool demeanor.
They really didn't explore the womanizing aspect of James Bond though through his character. He seems to be a little bit more into the men folk.
Well, keep in mind this is old James Bond too. If you go back to the old or to the young Obi-Wan, he was a player. That Jedi mind trick is greatly abused. Let's just put it that way. Greatly abused among the females. Why is there no Imperial Death March here? To me, sometimes it sounds like Darth Vader is saying cookie. It's like the Cookie Monster, like whispering.
This poor guy is one of the few officers that had to wear one of these hats.
Oh, dude. It's kind of like the joke, They're like, the initiation, you got to wear the goofy hat. They tell him to call Vader, Vady, so part of the initiation.
Here comes more of the crackers.
There's one of Han Solo's smuggling bays. We talked about earlier, Han Solo was a smuggler. He's like basically a drug dealer, That's what he would hide within the bowels of the ship. One of the things, spice, would be traded off Tatooine.
And even at the tender age of 5, when I first saw this movie, when I saw Han Solo and company crawling through the floor of the Death Star, I really felt like that's a little bit of a security breach. It was overlooked at what they were going to do with the floor panels. Let's make these completely disconnectable by the lightest pressure possible. I wasn't able to swallow the realism behind it.
Well, again, the Millennium Falcon was designed out of a teacup dish, so, anything goes. Now, this guy's enough of a dweeb tour. He actually gets a black outfit. I wonder if there's a reason why the Imperial troopers are wearing an external cup.
Great thing to explore.
This is something known as Wookiee rage here. When a Wookiee goes into full rage, you don't want to get in their way.
What's highly bizarre behind all of this is that they're able to get stormtrooper outfits, but you don't ever see what happens to the stormtroopers that are in the outfits.
Well, my guess is they stuffed them in those smuggling bays. But yeah, that's George playing it down, We don't want to show any naked bodies lying around. We get it, George.
But when I was a kid watching this, I really thought that was robotic parts inside the stormtrooper. So I also thought, how did they hollow out those robotic parts to fit the human bodies inside?
That's a good point. And I've never seen a stormtrooper put on the armor.
It's not explained until much later.
I mean, look,
6 movies later, actually.
How challenging that must be to put on, dude. I mean, do they weld it on every time? Like, what the heck?
I mean, the neck piece looks sort of like a slinky crawling up.
And there's like a tape cassette on the back, like a.
Here you have the testosterone clash between the lovers of Princess Leia. Unbeknownst to Luke, who's committing incest, basically.
Wait, you said Luke was made in incest? What?
No, he's committing incest by being in love with his sister.
Oh. Heath, he hasn't even met her yet. Give him a chance to do the right thing.
Oh, am I jumping ahead? My apologies. It's nuts, man. In that scene, they told Luke, we want you to hit soprano when you're talking.
I know, dude. I wonder if they had to do anything to him physically to get him that high. Han Solo can only be lured by riches and babes. That's it.
Again, under Luke's direction, Luke has been told, act clueless, follow the direction of your co-stars, and we'll get you through this. Mark Hamill did a great job of just coming across as clueless in a lot of the scenes.
I don't think it was acting, Heath. I think this was intentional. I mean, I think it just came out naturally that way. Again, he was running around with Brian Wilson, They're doing their Beach Boys thing. Chewie actually has a phobia of small droids. That's kind of what his aversion to that little black thing is all about.
I just can't get over his bandolier. It's just, it kind of smacks of Last of the Mohicans meets Buck Rogers.
Yeah, I agree.
It's got like a leather tongle going through the middle of it with like metal soap bar looking devices attached to it.
What amazes me is that he would even allow himself to be put in cuffs. Because if anybody knows the backstory of Chewie, he was actually a Wookiee slave that Han Solo freed. That's how they become friends. But yeah, he worked in a slave camp. The Wookiees were a highly oppressed race, especially under the Empire. So it's no freaky sight to see a Wookiee walking around in cuffs on a desk row. That's why they did that. Because they're like, yep, that's right. That Wookiee in cuffs, You don't just kill Wookiees wearing uniforms. Why is that? Well, the whole segregation thing, man. Putting the Wookiee down. And yet if he wanted to, he could have ripped those cuffs free. He's like, yeah, that's right. This thing. Look at the racial just slurs. Man, that guy's first day on the job right there. Look at how big his hat was. Oh no, laser fire.
Man, really imagine what these lasers would look like in 3D. It's hard to really fathom.
And this is when laser tag was actually born right here.
Again, I really became confused in this scene, and I wasn't understanding why stormtroopers were attacking the Imperial Guard with the assistance of with a Wookiee.
It's quite confusing. Again, the shrooms and all the stuff George Lucas was doing really affected his judgment in the production of this film. By the way, you should be prepared for death threats when this commentary is released. There's going to be a lot of angry nerds out there.
Oh, I can handle angry nerds.
The good thing about the nerd community is when they try and act out death threats, they try and use the Force to do it, and so nothing ever happens. He chained that all together. I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. Kiss me, you beautiful sister. Uh-oh, Force tremors. Part of Darth Vader's clash with his staff was their inability to understand the dark side, you know? They're just kind of like, whatever, dude.
Right, they're facing a bureaucracy, and he's really heavily influenced by the spiritual side of things.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he's like, Darth Vader's like a 7th level druid, and they're just like, they're playing Magic the Gathering in the lobby, you know? He's over there, like, throwing fireballs and stuff.
You know, I read that they weren't able to film those scenes with the lasers. Like they weren't able to simulate it. They actually had to fire lasers. So when you think the actors are doing such a great job of dodging, you know, green screening the lasers, they're actually dodging lasers.
Yeah, that's right. Real lasers. That's true. Yeah. In fact, real lasers are going to be introduced to the community here in the next few years. This is one of those pieces of technology that they held back specifically for the Star Wars productions. So you'll be able to buy a Han Solo laser pistol here in the next couple of years. See, Han Solo freed Chewie, but look how he's talking to him. He's still kind of like the slave master, you know. Like, get out there and pick that cotton boy, you know. It's just kind of, he's for freedom, but on the same token, it's kind of like he's still a little bit.
Well, he's playing like the Thomas Jefferson role, you know. I'm in entire favor of freedom and the Declaration of Independence, but I want to have my slave on the side.
Yeah. He's like playing both sides of the fence. I don't know why Chewie's upset. This room right here probably smells like the nest that he sleeps in, you know?
Well, they actually had to pay the actors a nice retainer to do this scene.
No, what do you call it? Not severance pay, but hazard pay. Yeah, for doing this scene. This is actually trash from the Beach Boys trailer. They're a party trailer. They told the Beach Boys, hey, when you guys throw your well party, we want you to throw all of your refuse, excrement, whatever. We want you to throw in this big dumpster. And so when it came time, they threw it all in here, and this monster that's going around here was actually created as a result of the Beach Boy garbage. If I had $1 for every time a Star Wars hero is sucked into some strange beast, I'd have several dollars.
Chewie's obviously the brains of the operation. He's actually trying to get out of the compactor, while the rest of them have decided to go ahead and WWE the creature at the bottom of the lagoon.
Of course, Chewie's his full level ability to get out is growling and scratching at the door like a small dog. It's cute. They actually had to reshoot this scene because Leia, the first time through, got wet in that dress, and it was a little bit too racy.
And also, I read that Mark Hamill really resented being the one that got pulled under by the monster. He really felt like Han Solo needed to pay.
He felt like, it was his time to.
Kind of Han Solo's kind of the wisecracking, smart mouth, handsome guy, and he really felt like it was time for him to pay the piper on this deal. But that's not the vision that Lucas had for the scene.
Lucas, I mean, it turned out
like I said,
brilliant.
He really had something for Han. Harrison, wherever you want to call him.
He was kind of Lucas's golden boy.
Yeah, he had a special tie with the Carpenter.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I'm not meaning Jesus. I'm meaning Harrison Ford.
Yeah, absolutely. The number one rule of being a stormtrooper is never believe a gold droid. That's going to get you in trouble every time.
I never really noticed when I watched this movie the first time how dirty C-3PO actually is throughout the movie. I mean, he looks like a shiny golden droid, but he really isn't. He's covered in all kinds of spackle.
Yeah, he's a dirty bird, dude. C-3PO is there to sexualize your children. That's why you need to watch Star Wars with your kids, because they're going to get some strange ideas from this movie.
So they found a giant, what looks like the stem on a razor blade to try to keep open the trash compactor.
Well, the Beach Boys had done a Bic razor promotion during the shooting of this, and that's part of the junk that ended up in the Beach Boys trailer. Brian Wilson's Bic is what he was jamming in between those two walls.
In the books, R2-D2 actually receives some gratification by connecting with computer units in that
Absolutely.
Fashion.
This is a very sexual scene for robots, man. It's just insanely erotic. In fact, when artificial intelligence comes out, this will be like an NC-17 movie that they will watch in binary.
Well, there was
about 100 years from now.
There was some confusion because C-3PO looks like he's being erratic and upset about the situation. But what was really happening was there was some jealousy
right.
going on.
C-3PO wasn't able to connect it anymore, you know. He kind of has this hate thing for R2-D2 as a result. Yes, we're out of the Beach Boys garbage. Yes. Brian Wilson, man, he had some nasty garbage. Do 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 do. I wish they all.
And again, you know, Alec or Alex Guinness, he really resented having all that extra material on the road, but again, he just wouldn't play well into some of the scenes when he got excited.
Absolutely, man.
He had to be extremely careful in this scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, dude. See how he's kind of hunchbacked? He's having to bow out from the thing. What is it that Han still has on? He still had like a white belt on. It's like, okay, so they never show him putting the suit on or taking it off.
It's possible that he had been, he had taken some martial arts, and that was as far as he got in his training.
It could be. I believe it's called a Terrace Cos Master. Terrace Cossi is the form of martial arts in the Star Wars galaxy. It's a brawler. It's a brawler art form.
I never understood why Obi-Wan just didn't use the Force to move these levers and to float around that.
I know.
Why is he physically putting himself in harm's way in this situation?
Right. It's like let's lift a fighter out of the swamp of Endor, but when we need to flip a simple lever, let's walk over there. I mean, it's almost kind of like they don't even have control over when they get to use the Force.
I mean, you don't see Gandalf going hand to hand with orcs. He pulls out his stick with his glowing orb on the top and makes it happen.
Right. Well, Gandalf the White, not Gandalf the Gray. Gandalf the Gray still did a lot of manual labor. Chewie isn't actually running in the battle. He's trying to go get Han because he realizes he's going to get himself killed.
George is trying to get as close. The weapon that Chewie is carrying, while it's a laser weapon, he wanted to make it seem as close to an M60, military-grade weapon as he could. The character that plays Chewie was actually a very strong individual, and he was able to, transport that weapon, through these scenes.
I find that a lot of the technology on the Death Star is either inadequate or incomplete. I mean, this thing just was not well thought out. Man, these guys are horrible shots. No. Imagine the Beach Boys music to this, man. It would just be weird. I've got to find that original cut of Star Wars Beach Boys.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it was odd to have the lyrics removed from the theme music, but it really played well into the scenes, I think, not hearing the Beach Boys' voices.
Well, see, Mark Hamill, he tried to tour. His voice was so high when they heard him squeal. They're like, dude, he can sing like he's like a little girl. They're like, we want him in our band. He tried to tour them for a short time, but it was short-lived. They're like, you're going to have to wait 30 years until the next Star Wars, that really has you in it comes out. That's after Episode 6. After Episode 6, he went to tour with them, and they're like, no, come back in 30 years, and you can do a crying Luke for 30 seconds at the end of The Force Awakens.
See the M60 that he's carrying?
Yeah. Uh-oh, here we go.
They wanted Alex to really resemble kind of one of the dwarfs from the Seven Dwarfs here.
Right, absolutely. The circle is complete.
I didn't understand that spin move that Obi-Wan just did. He lost some serious time on that.
Yeah, they say the more complicated the move is, the least chance you have to succeed. They told these guys not to touch sabers in reality because they bend, because the plastic PVC piping that they were using would actually bend when they connect. And there's a few scenes where you actually see the sabers bend a little bit because they connected. They're supposed to just get close.
Well, I mean, while this didn't happen with the actual, person playing Darth Vader, it is true that Alex and James Earl Jones did like to bang sticks.
Oh, man. The force is strong with you. Oh, Heath, you're too much. I hope you guys have really been informed doing this, watching Star Wars with us, commentary. I hope you've been enlightened. Your knowledge should have just quadrupled about Star Wars. You're going to be able to share so many fun facts with your friends. Here's George's tipping off a hat to euthanasia. When Obi-Wan lets himself be killed because he's old and senile and useless, he's like, I'm just going to let you kill me. There's so many topics.
I don't know, Titus. I really feel like that Obi just took one for the team. I'm not sure about the euthanasia undertones.
Oh, it's there. It's there. And see, Luke was hearing stuff, and, this is kind of what you're talking about, the Brian Wilson stuff. Luke was hearing voices in his head, so they just use that in the film. Obi's already dead, but he's hearing him, And Brian Wilson and Mark Hamill would have long conversations. He's like, dude, I'm hearing Obi-Wan in my head. And Brian's like, yeah, I hear him too.
Well, I mean, I got to say, it plays really well into the film.
His mental disorder, yes, it does.
I never really noticed that dent on C-3PO's head.
In the front, or?
Yeah, the left cranial. He's got a nice golf ball size dent.
That's kind of like one of those little secrets. Yeah, I see that. You remember on the movie Heath where Val Kilmer has the golf ball size
tumor on his elbow.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
We call those Easter eggs in the movie industry.
Yeah. Here's some more laser tag. We're going to play laser tag in the ship.
Lucas was upset with NASA because he wanted to be able to simulate zero gravity in a lot of these situations. They wouldn't give him access to their training facilities, even though this is considered a sci-fi movie. So he was upset about that, but the movie became a success nonetheless, even without zero gravity.
Well, and I mean, in reality, Star Wars was raped in so many ways. I mean, there was so much military technology that they derived from this film. I mean, there was even a program announced, the Star Wars program. Reagan announced it, Years later, I mean, there was just so much that Lucas gave away. So much that we have yet to see come to pass.
Well, and
laser pistols,
Mark Hamill did whine about the fact that, if you incorporate zero gravity into these scenes where I'm having to shoot from the guns, he was just really concerned that he wasn't going to be able to keep himself in his seat. So, he apparently, verbally was very upset. Made it well known that he did not want to work in zero gravity conditions.
Yeah, but George would have. He didn't really care about Mark Hamill, man. He didn't cast that role very well. It was just, they used him in the second and third one, or sorry, episode 5 and 6, just simply because they used them in 4. He was not pleased with Mark Hamill at all. And Disney kind of begrudgingly is bringing him back. I think they should have rebooted.
You're right. It was during part of what he had to agree to was to sign on for that movie Village of the Damned while he was filming Star Wars. A lot of people view that as a type of punishment for being cast into the Star Wars movie.
I've never seen Village of the Damned. What was that one about?
It's a Stephen King deal, I believe, and it's these little this whole town passes out in one day, and all the women become pregnant in the town, and they all have these blonde-headed children with special abilities. And Mark Hamill plays like a preacher or a priest in the town with a sniper rifle, and he's trying to take these kids out.
Wow. That sounds creepy.
Christopher Reeve was in it.
I've never seen that.
And he's like a school teacher to the kids, and amazingly enough, Christopher Reeve smells something wrong, smells something rotten in Denmark with these kids.
This is pre-Superman Reeve?
No. This is just pre-thrown off the horse Reeve.
Oh. So post-Superman, pre-quadriplegic Reeve?
This is probably 2 years before he went wheelchair.
Wow. They say that that there is a curse of Superman. A lot of people that played the role of Superman had tragedies happen to them.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm still waiting to see what happens to Brandon Ruth.
Well, it's interesting because we're getting a little off topic, but I'll just share my insight. Superman was invented by 2 Jews after World War II, and they modeled Superman after the Messiah. It's kind of a mockery of Christ, so it would
You're
make
kidding.
sense. It would make sense that there's a curse associated with it. In the latest movie, did you not see how Superman throws his hands out as like the savior and makes a cross when he leaves the ship? Yeah.
I didn't catch that, no.
Yeah. You don't mock Christ, folks. That's one thing you do not do.
You'll notice, a lot of the ships, well, at least not the TIE fighters, what are the other ones called, the rebel ships? Yeah, the TIE fighters. Very phallic-looking ships, Again, this is all part of George Lucas's vision, tied in with the robot erotica.
I just want to correct one thing real quick. The TIE fighters are the Imperial ships.
I'm sorry.
You're talking about the rebel fighters, such as the
Yes.
X-Wing. Yeah.
X-Wing. Okay, I got him reversed.
It's all right. I just don't want to provide any misinformation in this commentary.
Right.
That's kind of
no phallics on the Imperial side. It was all on the rebel side.
I want to make sure that all the information we provided here today is 100% accurate, which so far that happened up until the point when we called the X-Wing a TIE fighter.
Now, I know these uniforms that the rebel soldiers wear are supposed to be impressive, but for some reason I feel like they're toddlers wearing life jackets.
Yeah, I see that, man. Why are they watching Atari? Why are they watching an Atari game?
I think this was a premonition of Tron. I think
so too, man.
George Lucas really, through his acid trips, really set the standard for a lot of movies to follow.
Absolutely. But let's face it, though, if we get down to the brass tacks, without Star Trek, there would be no Star Wars, bottom line. Without Star Trek, there is no sci-fi. Star Trek is the father of sci-fi, in my opinion. That's like the daddy of them all.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, they didn't know going into the scene how they were going to destroy the Death Star.
They were freestyling, yeah.
One of the cast members in the scene actually came up with a plan. They were looking at a blank screen, and he came up with a plan, told George Lucas about it, loved it, decided to go with it.
Well, and two, basically, there were different ideas thrown out there of how they were going to do it. One of the guys came up with an idea of taking the Wookiee slaves and throwing them near one of the open portals of the Death Star as a distraction. They wanted to throw live Wookiees, like hundreds of them, out in front of the Death Star to cause a distraction, kind of like a Trojan horse.
Right.
And then when they bring the Wookiee bodies on board to figure out why are there like 300 Wookiees floating outside our station, they were going to load explosives inside the Wookiees, and then they would blow up and destroy the Death Star. But that was shot down.
As a quick sidebar, Titus, you'll see the device strapped around Luke's neck. Apparently, Luke wasn't a heavy sleeper. He actually had
sleep apnea. Yeah.
Luke had sleep apnea, and this is one of those devices that.
And he was also a narcoleptic. He didn't know when he was going to go to sleep, so he just had to take it with him everywhere. You'll see when he gets in his X-Wing, there was actually a little candy jar that he had to reach for to keep his sugar up. And so he could stay away.
Notice they're having to introduce a black R2-D2. There was some cries from the cast that R2 was getting too much attention as a white robot.
We've been using the term robot, and one thing I'd like to make clear for the audience is technically they're droids, but Heath and I use some more modern terms, so I just want to apologize for that. Droids, robots, they're really the same thing. They're both purely robotic mechanisms, versus a cyborg, which is human-robot mixture, of which there's really none of that in the Star Wars universe until General Grievous shows up.
When I first saw this scene, I thought that was Jeff Goldblum in the middle there, but it really isn't.
Dude, that would have been awesome, because there would have been a whole scene of Jeff going like, you just can't let nature. Nature's going to do what she wants. You can't make a Death Star. He would have done this whole thing, this whole evolution thing, arguing with them that they can't create it or destroy a Death Star. Like, do you think you're God?
It's interesting to note that with all the technology they had, there wasn't any hydraulic lifts, for the ladders or stairways leading up to the fighter, the jets. They were just using, straight ladders.
Well, also, George had tapped out his budget at this point, They had so many failed promos that he's just they're like, we need some yellow ladders. And luckily, one of his nephews worked on a loading dock and convinced his boss to loan George their yellow step ladders, which actually all of the ladders from this film are used in Home Depot stores today. There were so many left over that Home Depot decided, hey, this is what we're using.
So I'm seeing some of that Brian Wilson come into play here.
Yeah. I mean, what is that, dude? I don't understand this technology.
You'll notice they modeled the Game Master, the Game Master stuff from Mockingjay off of that table that they use, from the Rebel hideout.
Yeah. Have they showed the fish head general yet?
Have they showed No, you mean the Emperor?
No, the fish head guy.
Oh, no.
That's leading the assault.
No.
He cracks me up, man.
I'd really like to explore their call signs on their helmets.
You know what?
They all have their own individual designs and call signs.
He's actually in Return of the Jedi. The guy I'm talking about, the fish-headed, the squid guy, squid general.
Oh, he's got a name, I'm pretty sure.
Look at those X-Wings go.
One of the biggest challenges they had in this scene was making sure they didn't hit the ships. When they were firing the lasers, they were being told to intentionally miss. And, it was actually pretty difficult.
I feel a force choke coming on. He's like the Borat of Star Wars. He's like, very nice. I go in, destroy the Death Star. Yeah, you're all right, all right. That Undertaker general, he just doesn't look happy every time I see him. He's like, you can tell he spent too long under Vader.
They wanted to make sure they got somebody that wouldn't live, to the second movie.
Yeah.
You'll notice that the TIE fighters did synchronized flying in that scene.
Yeah.
They all went to the same exact angle rollover simultaneously.
Well, and the design of the spacecraft, it's kind of like Apple versus the PC, Like Steve Jobs is kind of like the Empire, and
people. There's been a lot of complaints over the years about how do the Millennium Falcon and all these different fighters, how are they able to fly across the galaxy without refueling? Well, I mean, when there's no gravity present, I mean, you need very minimal fuel in order to be propulsed across the galaxy.
That's true, but we're not gonna discuss quantum physics in this commentary. It's gonna be It's gonna be over the head of our viewers.
I was just trying to tip my hat off to Lucas's vision and the science behind what he did here.
I'm with you. I could discuss quantum physics, and maybe at some point I will, but I'm not going to do it tonight. So I will say this: E equals MC squared. That's all the further I'm going. I'm done. That one guy kind of looked like Norm from Cheers.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure and not exclude any body types.
Yeah.
In these scenes, I mean, you'll notice we've got the most fit to the most unfit flying these fighters.
They're very not picky about picking people that are willing to fly into a suicide mission. They're like, what were you before?
George was adamant that he wanted it to have an everyman feel to it, even though these are specialized, fighter pilots. He wanted it to look like it could be the guy sitting next to you at the bar at Cheers.
Which it is. It's Norton, So he did a good job with that. George Lucas really lucked out. I mean, there was no planning in this. This all just kind of came together. Really one of the better movies he made was just excluding the Beach Boys music. But this movie was just pure luck. So,
I've heard some arguments, is it the lasers that are actually blowing up the fighter planes, or is it the electrical fire that results from the laser making contact with the hull of the ship?
Right. Which came first, the flame or the laser scenario? Yeah.
Exactly. The flame or the laser. For some reason, when I keep seeing the infrared scan of the Death Star, I want to eat Fruit Loops.
Yeah. C-3PO was standing around that pit looking at everything going on. He's highly excited by all the electronics.
He's licking his chops.
Yum, yum.
That's Quentin Tarantino right there.
Is it really? Wow.
There he is.
I would love for Quentin Tarantino for Disney to give him the rights to make a Star Wars a short Star Wars film, kind of like The Hateful Eight or something like that in the Star Wars
sidebar,
universe.
Did you know he said he only wants to make 10 movies, and that's his 8th movie, Hateful Eight.
Wow. So there's 2 more to go, and then he's done?
Yeah, which is weird. I can't see that happening, but that's what he has said, so it's kind of different.
Huh. Interesting. I think it would be so cool for Disney to farm out Star Wars to some other companies to allow them to make their own kind of side creations of Star Wars. They won't do that because they just paid $4 billion for it. But the thing that blew my mind, though, was in the first weekend of The Force Unleashed coming out, they made back an eighth of what they invested to buy the entire Star Wars franchise in the first weekend, because they made $500 million and they paid $4 billion for the franchise.
But Jake, after this last weekend, they've lost $6 billion.
$6 billion?
No, $8 billion.
They have?
Yes. The Force Awakens has cleared over $1 billion.
Okay, $1 billion. I got you. So they've made back a fourth of their investment on the first film.
Yeah, within 2 weeks of it opening.
Yeah. So by the time they make 3 more films, they're operating in the black. Probably before that, dude. There'll probably be 2 more films, and they'll be in the black. Hopefully there's no economic collapse or anything, because if so, Star Wars is done. You can't carry $3 billion in debt too far. Unless it was all equity. I mean, I doubt Disney paid it with a credit card, That's a heck of a visa.
You may have not caught this in the scene, but when you look at Luke Skywalker's helmet, there's like a Band-Aid at the top of it. They didn't mean for that to be in the scene. They would have removed it had they known, but...
Was it a Scotch Band-Aid?
Yeah, just Band-Aid brand Band-Aid.
Oh, yeah. Vanilla Band-Aid.
You see it?
They got some free advertising, yeah. They probably didn't even get any money out of them. They should have. It might have said... I
don't know if he was trying to say, Luke is prone to accidents, but...
He is kind of a klutz. though, I mean, even at the beginning when he's playing with R2, and R2 has his little accident, and Leia shows up,
They really want him to look like he's nothing without the Force, That's kind of the religious implication.
Right, he's a klutz, and then he has the Force, and now he's somebody. Kind of like, if you get the Force, you can be somebody. Yeah, here's the Brian Wilson moment. He's starting to lose it, man. Obi-Wan speaking to me. Yeah, let's take all the technology and throw it out the window, and just use some superstition. That's kind of what George Lucas was going for here.
He really wanted Brian Wilson to be the one talking to him in the scenes, but he never could master the British accent.
I wish they all could be Jedi girls.
It's amazing that they never found a cure for balding.
I know you can make a Death Star, but you can't grow hair on a head. Come on, folks. There's the famous Yahoo moment. Yes. And, of course, Darth Vader gets away.
You do realize that George Lucas was going to kill off Darth Vader in this scene, but Harrison Ford really, saved the character and made a compelling speech to keep him alive.
Well, James Earl Jones originally had it written into his contract that he would only play Darth Vader if he got to kill Luke Skywalker at the end. And Lucas told him no because he wanted the option to make a second and third film. So eventually he talked James Earl Jones into at least just using his voice. So James Earl Jones, decided, fine, you can use my voice, but my body will not submit to your, to your will.
Makes sense.
That CPAP machine, man, saved him.
Again, they modeled the flying home scene from Top Gun was modeled after this scene in Star Wars. Really set the precedence for a lot of movies.
I see so many films that have been inspired by this, man. It's truly amazing that this accident of a film produced so many great things out there, Originally, this would Imagine Beach Boys music here, and these guys wearing Tommy Bahama shirts. It wouldn't have worked. Brian Wilson actually wrote an entire score for Star Wars that has never been released. That he's got it written into his will that it's going to be released in the year 2030, Star Wars Beach Boys. So if you're still alive, stay tuned for that album on whatever medium it's released on, whether it be via cybernetic implant or download directly in your brain, however they're doing it at that point. I doubt it's going to be CDs and MP3s.
It's been said that in this scene, Lucas was so thrilled that Mark Hamill was wearing a yellow jacket that he was hanging out, behind the scenes in the cameras just saying, yeah, that's right, yeah, yella. Yella.
Well, and John Wayne came on the set with his pistol and kind of had a standoff with Hamill, and he says, what are you, yella? Okay, guys, I just want to give you a little acknowledgement. That was a joke, okay? I just made that part up. But everything else is true. I want you to know that. This part makes me happy. I'm so happy.
Well, and the sad thing for Mark Hamill is this scene is his crowning achievement. I mean, it's like he won the Olympics here. He won Olympic gold.
Oh, agreed. Well, guys, thanks for joining Titus lately and Heathinator tonight. Spending your Star Wars evening with us. I hope it's been a pleasure for you. If you want to share your feedback or your anger or whatever tension it is you're dealing with, you can contact us at Han Solo, the number 4, and then me at gmail.com. So that's Han Solo, 4 me at gmail.com. Same name as our YouTube channel. And definitely stay tuned for all the other Star Wars episodes because there's going to be so much more information coming at you. You're going to be blown away by the Star Wars knowledge that Heathinator and I have combined. It's going to be really exciting. So this is just the start. So definitely subscribe. If you've enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe. Tell us what you think. If you hated it, go ahead and just hate on us real good. I want hate emails, death threats, whatever you got, throw it at us. So. But in any event, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me tonight.
And I would also like to encourage any people of faith that are watching the show to just release your anger.
Yes, because hate leads to, anger leads to, fear leads to hate leads to anger leads to suffering leads to Satan. Yes, release your anger.
You kind of had a George W. Bush moment there.
Yeah, I know. I did. I'm sorry, guys. There's another moment tonight that I had a George W. Bush moment, and when we were watching the Jawas, I did not remember the name of Jawas, and so I didn't say the name. I was trying to think, and I was stalling. And that's why it came off kind of weird, because it was like I never really said who they were. But yes, those are Jawas, the little black-faced people that were the Wizard of Oz midgets. So, anyway, you got anything else there, Jason?
Say again.
You got anything else to add to the mix? I think that's well said. I agree with you 100%. All right, guys. Until next time, this has been Heathinator and Titus lately. We're signing off.